Hi, I'm Kaden.
I'm Jordan.
And this is the Life Stuff Podcast.
And today we're going to talk about self-harm. Okay, so this is a topic that was brought up by a viewer, so we were going to discuss it. And I actually wanted to start with a visual.
Okay, so do you need me to move out of the way?
No, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn here. And this cup here, this cup is you.
Okay.
It's plain water. Is you. That's your emotional state. Okay, so everybody starts out neutral. Okay, so when you're born, you have no emotions yet until things are brought on, right? You can have different issues in life, such as stress, sadness, anxiety. You can hold that. So each problem, stress from something that happened at home. It's going to discolor your emotions. It's going to cause problems. And then say you have issues with anxiety. That's going to change your color some more, right? And then let's say you went through, let's make up a scenario. So give me a scenario. So these are emotions you gathered as a kid. Okay, so now you're a teenager. Give me an event a teenager might go through.
You started dating this guy, and he turned out to be really bad, and he ended up breaking up with you.
Okay, so in that relationship, you would have extra sadness, right? You could have anger. You could have loneliness. What else do you think could be from that?
Fear.
Fear is a good one. All right. So just from childhood and one event, your life, your emotions can be cloudy, and it's harder to navigate when your emotions are cloudy, right?
Yeah.
So every event that you have in life is going to add some discoloration, some emotions. They're going to get stuck in that's things that you haven't processed. If you process them, those emotions would change. So how that would look is, say you start therapy, right? And you go and you start talking to a therapist, that's going to clear out some of your emotions, and it's going to dilute it a little bit. But it hasn't gotten rid of it because you've only worked through a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then say, like we did the brain dumping exercise, say you added that on top of therapy, talk therapy, right? So that's going to be another tool to help you work through those said emotions, and it's going to dilute your problems a little bit more. However, if you didn't start working on anything and all you were doing was adding all those emotions, so say this was all extra emotions that we added because you didn't clear up anything. You see how high the water level is? You know how when you start bottling things up and you're shoving it all down and then you explode eventually? That's what happens. Now you're spilling your emotions on the people around you because you didn't work through those. So have you heard the phrase, you're bleeding insecurities on people?
Yeah.
That's what you're doing, and you're not even going to realize it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So with self-harm, this is another thing that could happen, is they get so overwhelmed with everything going on and they can't process it, and that is a way of controlling the emotions that they're feeling in the moment. Does that make sense? So if you went and you started therapy after you've already started bleeding on everybody, right? You're allowing yourself to still dilute it little by little. So therapy, journaling. Say you started EMDR therapy, which is a different type of therapy. It dilutes it more. See how it's starting to get clearer towards the bottom and it's not as dark? That's because you're working through those emotions. So as you are clearing out all these emotions, it's going to drain them from your system, and you're going to work and operate a little bit more smoothly. And see how much more clearer that is now?
Yeah.
Now, as you keep going and you keep doing all these therapies and use all these tools, you could eventually get your emotions to run clear. And when that happens is in personal life. So if you're going through different events, you've seen people have road rage, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's one little event that set that person off because they've bottled all those emotions throughout life, right? So if somebody has went through therapy and they've done the things, when something comes up like somebody cuts them off in traffic, they're not going to get outraged. They're not going to try and chase you down or yell at you or flip you the finger, right? They're just going to deal with it and be like, oh, okay, well, that sucks. Right? Does that make sense? How you're not as triggered?
Yeah.
Does the visual help?
Yeah, sorry.
What other ways, it doesn't matter, what other ways do you think people could do to help with emotions so they're not bottling them up like that?
Well, talking to people, journaling, which I know we talked about this yesterday. I'm not sure. I mean, you can take your emotions out on things, not people, so you can find a sport that you like.
Mm-hmm.
A
rage room.
There are those.
So what you're doing with those is you're finding a way to pull that energy out of your body.
Because some people can't talk about it, so
right.
they put it into like energy,
an activity or something,
and they put their energy into something like that.
Right. So writing, painting, music, dancing, just even walking.
Yeah, or running.
A
lot of people use running as well.
Or weightlifting is a big one for guys. So you're going to see them working out more when they're angry, and they'll try to get themselves pumped up when angry, even though that rewires your brain incorrectly and can cause problems later on. Did you know that? You shouldn't work out and try and make yourself angry to work out more. Another tool you could use to help would be like meditation, mindfulness, stopping that negative thought pattern.
I feel like yoga's one for me. Like
it actually is a big one because that's another movement. So yoga, Pilates, swimming, all of those.
Yeah.
Just stretching is a way to get that movement out. Another thing that I wanted to talk about during this is when you're doing this. So the cup represents your emotional state, and then everybody starts out at that neutral state, remember? And then okay, so like we said, if you didn't process your emotions and everything, you were going to bleed out on everybody, right? And it was going to cause problems for everybody around you, not just yourself.
Yeah.
So another way of handling emotions or events, if you don't have somebody to talk to, is reprocessing that event. So what that means is, you know how like we talked about where you can see an apple or something in your head if you envision it, right? Some people can. So if you can sit and think about an event that you went through that was really traumatizing, not even really traumatizing, because there's little trauma and big trauma. So little trauma, a lot of people miss and don't think it affects them as much as it does. So a little trauma could be, I left one day when you were 5 without saying goodbye and it hurt your feelings and you were really upset. So that could have been a little trauma.
I mean, you did do that once and I saw.
So that type of thing, if you're thinking about it, can you picture that in your head of that event? Yeah. Right? Because I have times, like when I was dropped off at daycare when I was like 4, that I remember that I stood outside crying. So that event, you can sit and picture it in your head. And instead of everything that happened that was wrong, reframe that as in your brain, like, yeah. So, like, picture yourself in that event. Okay, but instead of feeling the emotions of sadness, helplessness, or anything like that, it is, you look at it from kind of like a bird's eye view where you see yourself and you're like, okay, well, I needed to go through that so this could happen. Or what you can do is you can remind yourself what you could have needed in that moment to change the way you felt towards that event. And you can also technically talk to your younger self and tell them that I'm there, I still have you, and rework the situation that way. And scratch yourself.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're acknowledging the problem, which is half the battle, is acknowledging the problem.
Yeah.
So then you're going to acknowledge the problem, but you're also going to reframe that in your brain, because your brain, your subconscious brain, doesn't understand that that's not what actually happened. You can trick your brain, basically, and make it more not as traumatic. It's not as emotional. Does that make sense? Do you have anything else you might want to add to the self-harm?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
Do you think it's more, I think it's more prevalent with kids your age rather than adults.
I mean, it's still bad with adults too, but I feel like there's different forms of self-harm. And
Yes, there
it's
are.
like, I don't know. Sometimes people, like, they don't talk about it, or it just bottles up, and like you said, it'll go everywhere and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So a way you can see somebody that's struggling at school that way is if they're one day they're just angry at everybody. Every little thing makes them mad. You can tell that their cup's overflowing, right? So for you, seeing that in a friend, what could you do for this person?
Talk to them.
Right. And you're going to hold space for them. And how are you going to hold space for them, though? Because they're going to pour all these emotions out on you, and you don't want them to bleed on you.
You're gonna have
So you're going to
area in between, like that you've showed me this once. There's gonna be an area in between you, and you're just gonna let them, like, not like
imagine like a box or a bowl or
like,
something.
you're not ignoring them or like making them feel less for their problems because like of that. You're just letting them pour out their feelings. So
and you're not taking them on.
You're not taking them on. And that sounds kind of bad, but it just means
It's not.
that, like, I know, but some people would be like, it sounds bad, but it just means, like, you're not, like, you aren't taking on their emotions, so then you're spilling out everywhere because of what you're going through and what they're going through and what this other person is going through.
So you holding that space for this person, and you're allowing them to put their emotions in that little box or bowl in between you, is not going to discolor your cup in the moment.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Do you think that is a good explanation?
Yeah.
For kids and teenagers? I mean, I think it was easy to understand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have anything else that you might want to add to that?
Nope.
All right. If you guys have any questions, thoughts on our theory or our little analogy here, let us know.
That's all.
Any more questions, comments, or topics you might want to hear, let us know, and we can go over them. Have a good day.
I want to spill this out.
That's fine.
You see this? This is what we're doing by clearing up the BetterHelp, or by using our podcast.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.